That's part of number 2 Old Nelson Street where I lived. There you can see what the bomb blast did to the building. Little old gas lamp just underneath there you can see. And then in the background, of course, we can see the old gasworks and Christchurch spire. But we had to get out, and from there we moved into Arnold Street, number 39 Arnold Street, and then the rent proved too much for us, so we moved into Tennyson Road, 36. We went out the back way. This is a view of the top end of Old Nelson Street, where number 1 and number 2 stood. This is all known as Blue Bottle Court today, the police station. But there you can see all the debris, and that's the area being cleaned, ready for the police station. See some of the shops in the street there, or the top of the shops. Old Buffroyd used to have a shop on the corner where that little hut is. And then next door to that was an old pub called the Mayfly Inn. Frost Alley Score, the oldest score in Lowestoft, now covered over by the police station. It was said to be a footpath in Queen Boudicca's time, leading from the beach right through to Alton Broad. The only part of the track left today is a little alleyway between the Welcome and Kirby's, the lace shop, curtain shop in the street. But we have records of that track going right through to Alton Broad. Used to have some fun down there when we were kids. There used to be our playground. Big house we're looking at on the right here was all made of wood. That's where the Black Hand Gang used to be. Kids used to have their own gangs. There we have it after the war years. All new houses built at the top. Now I'm afraid they're all gone. And so this is all covered over by the police station today. Just memories to the old people. Seems a pity the old score had to go. Now we come to Old Nelson Street as it looked when I lived in it in the 30s. The old ancient cottages, you can see the two little old ancient cottages there. Where the gentleman is walking on the left, that was a house known as Strowan Boarding House. That's where they said Lady Hamilton slept when she came to Lowestoft. Whether she did or not, I never did know, but that's got to be proved as yet. Said there was a beam above the bed saying that Lady Hampton slept there, not on the beam, but in the bed. But you can see how quaint the old street was. Then the Germans put paid to it. There we are, same view. Where the first car white sticking out, that's the entrance to Frost Alley Score. And all this property now, which we see on this slide, has all disappeared. None of it is left today. One could talk for hours on these slides, but we like to keep it short. Then you can look at the picture. Now there we are, same view again, all that property gone, and now in the background there on the left we have the old court, the new courtrooms. So all this change has taken place since the war years. Not that I like it, because I don't. Now that's looking at the bottom of Old Nelson Street, right across to the parades. The sea used to come up to Battery Green, and where we had Prices, or where Prices was built, that was all reclaimed land. See the old lamp posts sticking up there? I love watching them old lamp posts. I think they give character to a picture. See the gentleman bending in the road. That proves that this photograph is one of Barrett's, the photographer. He always had his young lad or somebody in the picture. Same view, taken a few years back. Looking right across to a concrete jungle. No parrots, no nothing you can't see there, only just a mass of concrete. And the houses on the left, they too have disappeared. Now this one we goes back to the 1870s. I now mentioned Barrett taking these photographs. There's that little boy in the middle again. And this is looking right up Old Nelson Street from Battery Green. And now we can see Bow House on the right of the picture. Used to be a tavern to 300 troops. There used to be a big fort on Battery Green, manned by 300 troops, and that was their tavern. That's where they used to get their beer. And that's John Easter's mother-in-law, who was there ready to sort them out if there was anybody getting out of hand. John Easter, great friend of mine, as many of you know. We always say this is his mother-in-law. It's not, but cause a bit of fun, especially when he put his articles in the paper about his mother-in-law's knickers being glide kites. Now we have another view of the Old Nelson Street again about the 1880s. And now we can see changes again. Bow House still there. Battery Green beginning to get a little bit of fencing and gardening attached to it. And also up on the left we can see the Congregational Church, which I think was built in the 1860s. And of course at a later date, there we have the Bow House as a boarding house. There you can see all the visitors on the veranda and round the house, and the maids looking out the window, and little old children there looking over the edge. Quite attractive place. There it is again in the 1960s, just before that was pulled down. I was sad to see it go because it had so much character and there's so much story behind it which you can tell. And there we're looking right down Hamilton Road to where the Coast Guard station was. The old cobbled walls on the left where the youngsters used to get the bricks off the beach and cart them right up into the town to the local builder at a farthing the barrow load. But just memories today. Those beautiful old houses they pulled down. These were shown on 17th century in prints, maybe 16th century prints. But all that property was pulled down in the 60s. Pity they didn't keep them and make them into museums. Bow House still standing, just jutting out on the corner piece on the right. Shame to see the old places go. And that's an old print, about the 17th century, showing you the water coming up to Battery Green, the bathing machines. And if we look in the background, we can see our favourite little old Bow House and those little cottages we now saw, which went right up till the 1960s. This proves the fact that where John Gross, the car people are, and the Prices is all reclaimed land, so the sea came well up to Newcombe Road, because in Newcombe Road they used to have the old watch house, the original Coast Guard station. Now we come to one of the cool salt and tan floats on Battery Green. 1926, well there never was a ship 1926, that's the year the carnival. The highest number the ships went up to in the port was 1299. None of the fishing owners would go into the 1300s. In fact, on some boats, if the numbers added up to 13, they used to change the numbers. But how nice it is to look back on these old carnivals. And today the carnivals are nice, but they aren't what they used to be. That's another one, cool salt and tan. They always had the old drifter float. There we have the 4-7s. 7 4s are 28, so this is 1928. All the superstitions one could talk about, you know, the fishing industry. Maybe one day me and John Easter will do the fishing industry for you. This is inside the little old Bethel opposite the fish market, Battery Green. All the unemployed fishermen's children are here. I'm somewhere amongst that lot. This is when the mission and the Bethel got together and gave us a little party. And then the following day we went up to Crystal Palace up in London for a day out, and we really did have a lovely day. And then when we come back and got off the train, we were given a bat, ball, mouth organ or some little gift, and you went home feeling like millionaires. A lot of them children's father had to go over to the workhouse to get a meal ticket. They didn't give you wages, they give you a meal ticket. But that's another story. Now we come to the bathhouse on the corner of Hamilton Road. The little building, what looked like a little fort, that was the actual baths. And the house at the back was where the proprietors used to live. And that was standing right up till the 1960s. But the little castle effort, that was replaced by a shop, a sweet shop. Bonds had that before the war. Then Alan Dulf had it after the war, and that's all part of John Grocer's today. Look at the character there. There we are, Alan Dulf's shop. After the war, this is. Poor Alan, he died. Used to be a tug skipper. Spent many a time in there having a yarn with him. Used to help the Maritime Museum people a lot. He was a member there. But as I said, before the war, it was known as Bonds. Used to be a drain out there where we stuck a girl head first down there. This is in Newcombe Road. They're the old beachmen's yards. They used to come along, pick a bit of land, build a shed, and that shed and land was theirs from then on. Looked like something out of the Noah's Ark, doesn't it? I think Albert Spurgeon and Frankie Swan shared those two sheds. Right on the corner of Newcombe Road, all covered with John Grocer's today. There we have Newcombe Road in the floods. There you can see the Christ Church in the background. These floods occurred several times. I think this one was about 1912. So you know how the beach people suffered with the floods. Going back over the years. I can remember some in the 30s. Those little old houses, they didn't come down till the 60s. In fact, Darrington the fruiterer used to live in one of them when I was a boy. And Mr. Smith. Now we're in East Street. This is Reynolds and Aaron's Fish House on the right of the picture. And that was an old pub years ago named the Balaclava. You can see the water there, so this is a flood picture as well. Whether that's the 53 flood, I don't know, but that could be, because Reynolds and Aaron's weren't there till after the war. Old Wrecker made that before the war. And my uncle lived along there next door to Sammy Downs. Yeah, the old Empress, they always crop up in these pictures. Sunrise Net Factory, you can see right in the background. There, talk of the devil, there it comes. That's the old net factory where they made all the nets. And that was well after the war years. Old Budley Stables just past that. We always said Budleys, never Bordleys, which was the proper pronunciation, but to us youngsters on the beach, that was always Budleys. There again, Hangwy Street. There you can see all the floods, the people up at the windows, the floodboards. As I said, this occurred several times over the years. People still live down there, no matter the cost of the water or what damage it done. We keep stopping talking so that you can watch the film or the picture and pick things out for yourself. I'll just give a brief explanation as we go along. Then you can sit back in the chair and maybe memories come back. Now this is the R101 flying across Waplow Road, and the little corner shop we can see on the right hand corner was old Mr. Burwood's sweet shop. Whenever you went in there was always a smell of paraffin hanging about in the shop. And we can also see more or less central another shop with the windows all boarded up. That was old Dickie Bunn's shoe shop where he used to mend your shoes. He was an old uncle of mine. But that's all the beach area. Canary Cottages, Vigilant Cottages, all in that area. The R101, as many of you know, crashed. Here we have old Buffroyd's shop. Well, I always called it Buffroyd. Somebody else had it after the war, but to me that was always Buffroyd's. Used to go get things on tick. The little house next door, on the left, a pub called the Mayfly Inn. Happy memories for some of the old beach people. Never paid for anything. Christ Church, built as a monument to the Reverend Francis Cunningham, known as the Cunningham's Beachman's Memorial Church, but too much of a mouthful for the old beach people, so they called it Christ Church. And if we look right back towards the back of the picture, we can see like a big white board showing up. That was where Ronnie Cook first started off his butcher's shop. The old church is still standing there, but most of the properties have all been demolished for industry, and the church is now known as an industrialist church. When we were kids, we used to run around there. The old policeman used to come after us, but he never caught us because we knew every nook and cranny to dive into. This is after the war years. There we can see many, many gaps. The old church still stands, survived the war. The little three-corner green just in front of the church used as a car park now. But when we were youngsters, we used to get the old planks and four wheels on it, race round. This is the Dr. Bernardo's Naval School, waiting to go into church. We also had the Watts Naval Training. They all used to come down and camp on the Deans. Now we have the floods again. There you can see Christ Church in the 30s, because all this property had been demolished. But there you can see the flood water. See the gasworks in the background. Nelson Road, not to be confused with Nelson Street, that's on the way down to Old Budley Stables. On the end of that row of houses, right at the back, you'll see a little building with like a white window cell. That was an old pub called the Princess Royal. When the licence expired on that, that was taken by the Jones family up to the Norman at the top of Fir Lane. Old Mrs. Garrett lived in this end house, the big house on the corner. Now we have a close-up of the Princess Royal. We used to go in there as kids, and they used to have what they call a punch board. You had a pin, and you give the lady 8p, and then you put a pin in the board, and you used to get a coil of paper out, and sometimes it had a prize on it. Now we have another view of the old beach village. This is next to what used to be old Bingham's, the bakers. That's a bombed out area. So after the war years, somebody's using it as a drying grounds for the linen. Old Bingham's bakery that was taken over by Birdseye when it opened as their first laundry store, where they used to dish out the overalls to the employees. Most of them houses used for the troops during the war for house-to-house training. People were evacuating, the houses were empty down there. The old rising sun, when we used to come in from sea, we used to say to each other, we'll see you at the Japanese embassy. And this is where we used to finish up, down on Waplow Road. One of the last pubs to be on the beach, 13 pubs, this is one of the last. In fact, that was the last, I think. Gussie Jensen, he had it. Old Bloater Nichols, he was landlord there as well. When now we come to the Gas House Tavern. 1953 floods, this one. Little old kids in the background there on the right enjoying it, slushing through it. Little cottage on the left-hand side here, known as Derby Villa. I went to see where old Derby James. And next door was Sadie Villa, old Sadie Springer. I went to see with both of them. Sadie's still alive, one of the best he is. Poor old Derby died, like many more. These are the old cottages at the rear of the Gas House Tavern, the old fishermen's cottages. They're the cobbles what the youngsters used to go get off the beach, pardon the barrel load. I'm trying to think whether that's Bartram Square, I think, was the name of it. See a couple of old drain pipes there, made a funnel for the copper. This, I think, was after the war years, celebrate some jubilee. That's all the beach people getting together what lived down there after the war. Several people I know on there. See Chai Harper's face sticking out. Vicky Harper, Cecil Wilson in the background. Too numerous to mention, I'm afraid, but taken at the back of the, or somewhere around at the Gas House Tavern. Another one of the old pubs, Sailor's Return. Oeza Coleman standing at the door. Next to him, you can just make out a little boy, and he got a little dog there, but in my day, this was Flirty's the dairy, the milkman. That's on the corner of Walscore East, I think they used to call it Walscore East. Beside the pubs, you had the beer houses where you could sell beer from your front room. These are the old Fisherman's Arms houses. These are all demolished. The stones from over the doorway, like Fisherman's Hospital and Love Thy Brotherhood, they're all up on Church Green, stuck in the warden's cottage. But look at all the cobbles in the walls. Old Dickie Bird Rose, he lived in one, and my Uncle John, who I was named after, although he was never known as John, that was always Jack Rose. He lived next door to old Dickie Bird. Now we come to Ranch Score East, where the first bombs fell during the war years. You can see the gap between that last house and the gas house, so you know how near they were to hitting the gas works. But I'm afraid they've all gone. All been demolished. What the Germans didn't do, the planners or the council have done for them. The little old beach Bethel used to be the boys' club there. How Alexander Boyd, he was a bit religious maniac. He used to go around with religious pamphlets, and it was through him that this church was built, this little Bethel. Took over an old fish house. Not to be confused with the Bethel opposite Battery Green, but there's the old primitive Methodist church. In the First World War they were dishing out soup from there. It was used as a soup kitchen next to the arms houses. We can see the arms houses on the left. After the war, this was taken over by Birdseye as their cleaner's store, where they stored all their bleach and cleaning materials. That's an old drifter's boiler, and that's now going into the Birdseye factory, into the boiler room. They had two of these old drifter boilers in there. These little cottages alongside on the left, they were all knocked down and Birdseye expanded there. And also in the background we can see the Eagle Brewery, which was also taken over by Birdseye. That's next to the Ranch Score. But that's an old drifter's boiler, and two of them went into the boiler room of the Birdseye. "1953 floods again, Eagle Brewery on the left of the picture. There's little old kids swamping through the water again. The big building just on the right, past the house, I think was the Irish Rope Works. And then we can see the fence and further along the Lowestoft Steam Laundry. I think the gentleman standing at the door of the Eagle Brewery here is my old friend Cecil Wilson, still about the town. When I went upstairs, because the Eagle Brewery was taken over by the Navy during the war, I went into one of the rooms and these murals was on the wall, and this apparently was the Royal Naval Patrol Service canteen, where they used to go get cups of tea and sandwiches. So they lasted a good while. But they've all been demolished today. An aerial view of Birdseye factory. There you can see Ranch Score on the right of the picture, and the modernised Eagle Brewery. The building must got like a white square panel on it. And then if we look in the foreground, just between the Birdseye factory and the row of cottages there, you'll see the old Fisherman's Arms houses. That's in between the factory and these properties at the front of the slide. But what we're looking at here have all disappeared, completely demolished. Vanderhorst, I see that's up for sale now. The chrome glazed place just on the left-hand top corner. Used to be wristwires and cables when I was a boy. Now we come to the old Lowestoft Steam Laundry, which caused a lot of commotion when it was being built. The old fishermen said they can't build on the Deans, but I'm afraid they could. The Lord of the Manor owned all the Deans, and he was selling the land off, and when it went to court, if he'd have wanted, he could have sold all the deans. He could even have sold the South Beach, because he owned all the South Beach. The Fowler family, who had Gunton Hall, went right up to the Gunton Drive, and then right through to the North Parade Bridge. And then from the North Parade Bridge, the Lord of the Manor took over. Here we have an old house, as we can see by the date, 1860, down on the beach. More or less built up on stilts. Quite an old picture, this. Or an old print, I should say. Give you the type of house what was down on the beach. And that's one of the last fish, well, they're still there today, the one next door to it. This was Jones's fish house, the one on the left. And then we can see another building. Well, that building is standing, that's Butcher's, still there today. But Tommy Jones's fish house have been demolished. And if we carry on walking down the road, we'll come to all the, what's now the industrial estate. I'm trying to think of the name of the printers there. Tyndale Press. But they've moved from there now, I'm told. This is Tommy Jones inside that old fish house. Young Tommy Jones. We used to slip across from the Bird's Eye factory and get seconds from him early hours of the morning for our tea. Seconds of the kippers what were all split and spoilt. Palfrey and Webb, another old fish building taken over by industry. That today has all been demolished. But this, I'm afraid, have happened to all the old fish houses down on the beach now. They've all been taken over by industry. See the old steam laundry in the background. Salters Street, the old fishermen's cottages. Once again, all cobbles and brick. All collected by the youngsters. Now all demolished. Jack Breach's house, next door to the Shoals at the bottom of Lighthouse Score. Jack Breach came up from Ramsgate with a few sovereigns in his pocket and built up one of the biggest fishing fleets in the port. And that's Jack Breach's house. If one walks past, they'll see his initials just above the doorway. Part of the Shoals there, you can see, have been demolished. Had a preservation order on it, but they don't stand for that in this day and age. There again we can see a corner of the Shoals, which was also demolished. And then we can see all the morning houses which were built in the 30s, where the old fishermen's cottages used to be in Lighthouse Score. They were demolished, and then these council houses built in the places. '70s, showing you the old fishermen's cottages, part of the Shoals on the left, and if we look up in the middle of the picture, we can see Lowestoft Lighthouse. Picturesque, but I'm afraid all disappeared. And now we have a lovely view looking down from the top of the Lighthouse Score, right down to the Deans. In the top house, or somewhere amongst that row, was old Happy Wellham, the local sweep. There he is, talking a doubly sure to appear. Quite a few stories about the old boy. Some I can tell, some I can't. Old dog always used to run between the wheels of the cart. Now in the floods he had the old donkey upstairs in the bedroom. 1916 bombardment, he rolled a live shell into his front garden and charged the public tuppence to have a look at it till the police come. And so one could go on and on talking about old Happy Wellham. The old net posts where they used to dry the nets. When the nets weren't on there, we kids used to go down there and use them as goal posts, play football. The broken sea wall, this could have been in the 40s, 1940s. Now we have putting a new wall at the rear of this broken wall. Had several walls, Douglas Wall, Mobbs Wall, Gentry's Wall, and whole sea always used to undermine them. This is the North Sea Wall up on the old extension. SLP have got a site there today. There we can see the Coast Guard. There you can see what the sea done to the wall, and now we have the railway track which led round to the old shingle mill where they used to get the stones and the shingle and then run them along this track right through to the railway station for shipment elsewhere. But that's on the North Extension. This is one of the old bathing machines down on the North Beach. This was early Victorian time. See the old bathing machines and what the beach was like. Weren't allowed to take the clothes off. They always had to keep the clothes on when they went on the beach. And here we have a view of it during the war years. I know myself, Titch Wilson, John Woolley, when we were in the Naval Cadets, we heard there was nuts and oranges and butter washed up on the beach, and we went through this here barbed wire right across the Deans. When we come back, there was a petty officer and some naval ratings shouting, and we'd gone through a minefield and didn't know it. Now here we have a very old picture. There you can see the youngsters piling up the stones in the background for the local builder to come and collect. And we can also see just above that little girl's head a building, a whitish building, which used to be the original lifeboat shed, which later years became Budley Stables. There was a lifeboat board in there where all the rescues on it. That went down to the Lowestoft Lifeboatmen's Social Club next to the Coast Guard station. But there you can see the youngsters eating up the bricks and the cobbles in the background. Used a lot of them for the making of roads. But look how much beach we had. That's the old original lifeboat shed, the big building, not the little one, the big building on the left. That's where they kept the lifeboat. And that used to be towed down to the beach for the horses, or if the horses weren't available, every man, woman and child turned out and pulled it down to the beach. There we have the builders filling the cart up with stones. They've decided not to pay anybody. They've just come down to fill the stones up themselves. But a lot of the builders paid the youngsters to heap the stones up for them. This is all down on the North Beach. And now we have a nice view looking right across to the lighthouse, showing you all the old net posts and the old fish yards. And the old modern lamp post, which I don't like so much as the gas lamp posts. One now caught my eye right in the centre of the picture. Poor old Flip Garnham, who only died last week, he tanned thousands and thousands of nets in that shoals. This is an old print of the Dean showing you the men land the nets out. They also used to graze sheep down there, but everything had to be paid for to the lord of the manor. I think the council in the 1800s, late 1800s, bought all the Deans at £5 an acre. We can also see a big building up on the cliff in the centre. That was St Margaret's Vicarage, which got bombed during the war years. And as we come towards the right hand side, we can see the old houses, and one with 4 bays on, which was Arnold House. That's St Margaret's Vicarage. And if we move over to the right, well, you can just catch Arnold House. All the old fish houses, very picturesque. Here we have the Deans again, showing you the old yacht pond. That's the model yacht pond where the youngsters used to take the yachts. And now we can see an old steam drifter going to the Nord. 1 or 2 bathing machines down on the beach. And now we can see the paddling pool, Lowestoft swimming pool with the fencing round. All that today is the caravan site. And in the foreground we have the Dean's Oval. At the moment we're looking at the tennis courts. And then you can see the model yacht pond, and now we're inside the swimming pool itself. All the children used to walk down at least once a week for swimming. Used to glory in it. During the war the Navy took it over and trained their matlows to swim in there. I was one of the last to swim in there. We lost a young naval cadet who was accidentally drowned. Then we can see another view of the diving board, and also the old chute where we used to slide down. But this was a marvellous old pool. Going back to the 30s, when we gave a display of the flag, we also gave a display of the crown and the King's initials, GR. How Hollingsworth the millionaire bought us all ice cream after we finished, but every school in the town took part in that. Now we come to the Maritime Museum. These used to be the church warden's cottages to St Margaret's Church. They were pulled down and rebuilt in 1828. And then outside the door we got a little shell which Happy Wellham rolled into his front garden, and then the big shell which went through 13 houses in Kent Road and didn't explode. If you haven't been in there, then I advise you to go down and look at some at Lowestoft's fishing heritage. That's the flight of the shell which went through 13 houses in Kent Road and didn't explode. Old man Jenkins gave a little boy 6pence to stand at the end of that house, and then he tracked the mark right through the photograph. I think that little boy's name was that's Mr. Edwards today. These are the wrens which were stationed at Lowestoft during the war years. In fact, some of those are Lowestoft girls I should say. And that's the little Maritime Museum which they used as a writer's office. They used to handle all the pay and queries, and quite a nice bunch of girls there. Now we come to one of the old bandstand which is no longer with us. Some of the vandals burnt it down. It wasn't the original one. They used that during the war years when the patrol service took the nest over to give out the orders of go abroad, foreign drafts and ship, and where they got to go to join ships, and they slept in the little theatre there. That's the Sparrow's Nest Lodge. That was owned by Mr. Sparrow of Wallingham Hall, who founded Lowestoft Lifeboat in 1801. That was his summer residence. and that's how we get the name Sparrow's Nest. During the war, the Navy took it over, knocked all the thatched roofing off, and that became the naval base for the patrol service. In fact, the rounded part is still inside the museum today. This is another view of the old lodge. The little glass aviaries on the left where they kept all the tropical birds. People used to wander around there just the same as they do today. And here we have the people in the Victorian era sitting in the gardens enjoying the sunshine and having cups of tea. Then we have the gardens again. All the old Victorian people enjoying themselves. Now before the theatre was built, they used to have a tent, but the good old wind used to keep blowing the tent down. So that's why they built the theatre in its place. But when they first started off, that's when they had the tent. I think a gentleman by the name of Mr. Stebbins used to run it every year. He used to have a shop near the GPO. The old lily pond's still there today. Now this is the Sparrow's Nest Theatre, as it used to be in the 30s. You can see it was quite picturesque. Then when the war broke out, the youngsters 18 years and upwards, that's where they came to Lowestoft. All the seats were taken out and they slept on the floor. And now we have some of those lads out on the lawn itself. And in the background you can see the old Sparrow's Nest Lodge and part of the thatched roof. But that eventually was taken off by the Navy. 75,000 matlows came through there during the war. Quite a record. They used to call it Harry Tate's Navy, but that weren't really. And here we have it today, in this day and age. That's when the patrol service took it over after the war years and formed their association. I think that was about 1975 when they took it over. This is their badge which they used to wear on the sleeve after 6 months minesweeping service at sea. That was more or less like a medal term. The silver badge. Proud as hell they are of that badge. And they've got every right to be. 2,385 men they lost. Here we have Jim Callaghan, the Prime Minister. He was in the patrol service during the war. And there he is talking to the late President Harry Kirby, pointing out one or two ships he remembered being in the port. And when he was at Lowestoft, he was stationed in Gibbs, the fishmonger's shop in Carlton Road. I was down there that night to meet him, and they gave him one of my books, HMS Europa, and a tie to go away with. This is upstairs in the exhibition. It's all changed today, so you mustn't expect to see this today. They built a wheelhouse up there and halted everything round. Everything's new. Those wrens up on the stage, I dressed them. They're the only wrens who got the skirts held up with braces. I put string round them braces. These are the little old barra boys who used to cash in on the sailors. They came down outside the nest gates for them barras. You can see the different variations of Europa, YEW, and see them on the barras there. And they used to cart the sailors' kit bags to their lodgings. This side of the bridge was threepence, and if you went to the south side it was sixpence. I thought I'd have a go one day, so I took this sailor's gear. We got right up to Pakefield, Kendall Road, and all he had on him was tuppence. So I took the bar home, and that was my once and only time. Now this is the Patrol Service Memorial. I don't think they could have bettered this. I think it's a beautiful thing. 2,385 names on there. Those lads got no grave but the sea. And I think that's a marvellous tribute to those men to have that in the place where it is today. This is an old view before Bellevue Park was laid out. You can see Park Mansions right on the end there on the left, which is now known as Wedgwood Court. A pile of stones just on the right. They were known as the Farrers stones. They held a light beacon. Before the lighthouses, they used to light these beacons up. And that's what those stones were for, to hold this light beacon. Part of those stones are still in the park today, and they date back to 1609. Now that's the entrance as you come into the Bellevue Park of the little cottage. We can date that back to 1874 when the park was laid out. In the background we can see like a pole sticking up. That was the Lowestoft weather station. Chap in Park Road used to look after that. Another nice Victorian view of the park. The little old children walking round the gardens. There again we can see Park Mansions on the left of the picture, known as Wedgwood Court today. And there's that weather station. The old boy in Park Road looked after that, but he kept getting the weather forecast wrong, so they give him the sack. He couldn't get it right. But a lot of people can't remember the weather station being there. That's before my time, mind you. Now we have another look at the ravine. On the left, that heap of mound there would be the Bellevue Park today. On the right, we have a little track leading up to the North Parade. Today there's steps leading up to the North Parade, and there's two little houses alongside. One used to be the yacht club, not yacht club, the golf club's house, secretary's house, and the other one was Dawson's Caff. But this, again, even an older picture, showing you the ravine, and where the Bellevue Park is was old Vincent's house and his farmyard. He had a farmhouse there, an old haystack, and his horses. And he used to be the driver to the Royal Blue Coach, what used to take the mail and stuff and passengers about. Another nice old view, the Bellevue Bridge there, put up by Youngman. He weren't going to do it at first, they were going to have a collection. In fact, they got some in, but they couldn't get enough. So old Youngman said, well, I'll pay for it to go across. So that's how Youngman paid for that bridge to go across, because they couldn't get enough money in. There we have another old view. Now where the pillars land on the left of the picture, that's an old Victorian rubbish dump there, known as the Tinker's Hole. Now a lot of people don't know that, but that was an old Victorian rubbish dump. I only hope people don't go and start digging up there, that's all I hope. Now here we have the corner of the little Bellevue Park. In the foreground here we can just make out like a little round thing. That was the old fountain with the four old iron cups on it. Where the pond is, where the kiddies are playing, that was taken off when they narrowed it round from Cartscore to Rantscore. Not Rantscore, what was it? The ravine. The ravine. And also on the top of the picture, no houses on the North Parade. Just that little track going up. Now we have a different view, look. There we have the pond. There we have with the steps leading up to the North Parade. And there we have that little golf secretary's house. And the big house which was Dawson's Caff, where we used to go get our cups of tea when we came out of the swimming pool or came back off the Deans from playing cowboys, football or whatever it was we used to play down there. Now this is another old bit, that little old bit of garden is still there, which they took away, the old iron railings. And in the background we can see the town allotments, which later became the Dean's Oval. That's where they used to grow all the cabbages. That's a better view, look. There's the allotments, the two little houses here, the paddling pool, looking right down to the beach. No sea wall. Little track leading down to the beach. See a gentleman there in the, just about on the right of the picture. And this is more or less a modern picture now, showing you the Dean's Oval. Then it showed the paddling pool and the swimming pool. So this would be the 30s. So when we look at the Dean's Oval, we think of the allotments. This is the old Warren cottages. This is where, at the rear of, they found the clay for the making of Lowestoft china. The foundations of that old cottage still there today, if you go down and look. Used to be a little stream run down there all the time, but when the people bought the houses on the cliff, they dammed the stream off so that it don't run down to the beach anymore. And there we can see somebody camping out. It could be the TA, Watts Naval Training School. The lowlight, which they used to keep moving about onto the shifting of the sands. The sands off Lowestoft used to move, so they had to move the lowlight at different times. And that's the old German cable house there, when they used to lay the cables across from the continent to Lowestoft. Call it the low light because they used to get that in line with the highlight, Lowestoft Lighthouse. That's how it get the name highlight. Nice close up of the low light there, look. Little old paraffin store underneath there where they used to keep the paraffin and stuck ropes and gear like that in case they were needed. Somewhere about 1925 I think that went away. Went to Birmingham of all places. The old beach sheds. Some of them upturned boats, you see the roundness. Boats cut in half, stood up on end. See one of the original lowlights there, look. A wooden one. Oh boy, they got a telescope out behind the gentleman standing up in the front there. This is another one of the old shards, the old company, all them figureheads and nameplates taken off wrecks off the coast. These were the fishermen of the town and seamen. Wasn't no motors where you jumped aboard and pressed a button and away we go. Look at that for a lovely photograph, isn't it? Old Brock Ellis with the telescope, biggest man in Lowestoft. Next door to him you see the old boy with the beard. I think that was old Sheppy Hook, Bob Hook's brother Sheppy. Character. It's one of the old sailing lifeboats going past the North Pier. Looks as though that's tripping day. Look, they got a load of people on, so it could be a lifeboat day, because they'd never carry that many crew. Lifeboat days, you know, they take people out for trips. And that's one of the old lifeboats laying up on the beach outside the old lifeboat shed. Used to drag them right down to the sea edge, you know. This is the pulling of the lifeboat down to the beach when the horses weren't available. Could be a trial trip here, because as a rule you had men, women, children, everybody pulling here. You just got what looked like part of the crew and the old beachman. Used to pull them on rollers, used to have rollers underneath. You had men walking alongside, and as they pull them over the roller, they'd take the last one out and run to the front with it. That's what they call kedging off. They got an anchor out at the front, and they pull themselves off the beach. When they used to come ashore, just before they got ashore, they'd drop an anchor over, and then when they came up on the beach, if they were needed, they pulled themselves off with the anchor they'd dropped when they come in. known as the kedge anchor. Black Saturday, this was a bad day. I think it was 1882 time, when the Lowestoft lifeboat refused to launch, on to some dispute they had, and it weren't until two angry visitors went down to the lifeboat shed and demanded that the lifeboat be launched, else they would make Lowestoft a disgrace in all the national newspapers, that the lifeboat was actually launched and some of the lives saved, but there was a lot of lives lost in the morning. That was known as the Black Saturday. Showing some of the wrecks against the South Pier. And the boat we see on the right is a lifeboat which the public bought out of public subscription in the town, called the Caroline Hamilton, and that was used as a lifeboat 2 or 3 times, and it was sold off as a tripping vessel, you know, take trips out. So the spurt of Lowestoft, the boat we've just bought, is not the first lifeboat Lowestoft bought, but the second. There we can see the Caroline Hamilton again, when it was used as a tripper. But it did do about 2 or 3 jobs as a lifeboat. Here we have the Fawn Yacht, washed up on the old extension, full of peas. Pea birds I went about then. But every kid in the town bought a pea shooter. And they went down there and they filled the pockets, and the whole town was plagued with these kids shooting peas at them. And there was a policeman in them days known as Six Striker. He carried a stick and he cured them. He's the one who put a stop to it. You can guess why he was called Six Striker. Because he used to give you 6 strikes across your backside with his stick. Here we have a common occurrence. That's a Scotch drifter washed up on the North Beach. Maybe she had engine trouble, broke down and came up on the beach, but this was common occurrence with sailing vessels particularly. That's Lowestoft lifeboat crew. I think that was 1929, when they all went to London in the Lord Mayor's procession. The Lord Mayor of London married a Lowestoft girl, and she demanded that the Lowestoft lifeboat crew be in that procession. There's old Albert Spurgeon at the back there with his peak cap on. And that's how we get Lowestoft lifeboat crew in the Lord Mayor's procession at London. See old Billy Butcher on there, old Lenny Swan, Frankie Swan. Here we have 4 of the old beachmen. At the back is old George Rose, my old granddad who I used to live with. Next door to him, the tall fellow, was Albert Spudgeon. Spudgel we used to call him. In the front we got Jack Rose, my uncle, the one I was named after. He was bowman, and that's the position I finished up when I was in the lifeboat. Then we have old Turl there. Tommy Turl, used to be known as Chorfy, I think, years ago. But the Rose family have been connected with the lifeboat for 586 years combined total service. I done 17 years myself. And we were proud of the old Rose record. Harry Burgess Coxon, he was another member of the family. This is my great-granddad, old Mike Rose. That little old kid, he said to us once, "What's that chicken calling out his pocket?" See the handkerchief there, the little old kid, he thought that was a chicken. But that's my great-great-granddad. Said he was a champion apple picker of Suffolk. He used to hang on the branch of his nose and pick with 2 hands. That's his son, old Mike Rose, George Rose. Proper name was Henry, but he dropped Henry. Oh, he always wanted to be called George. That's the one I lived with. Got in his way, then you felt the back of his hand. Hard as a iron, but heart of gold. Fisherman, longshoreman. Then we have the lifeboat. We can't talk about Lowestoft without lifeboats, you know, and that's the old type lifeboat, sort which I first went on, going out to a ship in distress. went to do good. Somebody's son, husband in trouble. Here we have another view, the lifeboat on the right of the picture, going to a Scottish drifter which has come ashore. And as I said before, this was a common occurrence. Hull Swan, John Swan, the lifeboat VC, got the medal through the Oakland rescue when he got alongside a big ship, took off all the crew. And there we had the Agnes Cross under Cox and Albert Spurgeon going to the smack, the lucky hit. See 2 or 3 men up the rigging who Spurgeon managed to take off, and that's the Agnes Cross. The 3rd man, he jumped over the side and they pulled him up on the pair with ropes. But this was in the 30s. I can remember running out of school and running down to the Pair Heads to see this. The old pickling plots where we used to run along and pull the wedges out and watch the barrels roll down the road. Each barrel held average about 600 herring. There we can see the Coast Guard station, and these yards were all over Lowestoft. Kirkley, Pakefield. This is down the Hamilton Road. You can see all the drifters in the Hamilton dock. That's when you could walk across without getting your feet wet. In the foreground we can see the Scotch girls, how they used to work in little bands of 4, putting the herring in the barrels. They never chucked them in, they all had to be stacked in. And here we have some of the Scotties in the Hamilton dock. The old Scotch boats, they used to come down, BF Bams, FR Fraser, PD Peterhead. Now we're back to 1953, down by the Coast Guard station in the floods. That's poor old Bob Cooper on the veranda of the Coast Guard station. Used to spend hours up there with them Coast Guard when I was in the lifeboat crew. This is another view of the old pickling plots. Could be taken from the Coast Guard station. All those barrels, as I've said before, average 600 herring, all placed in by the Scotch girls. But these fish yards, they were all over Lowestoft, and Pakefield, Kirkley. We used to run along the top of the barrels. Now we come to the entrance to St Margaret's Road, where you see the white shade on that house. That's the entrance to St Margaret's Road. In those days it only ran as far as Queen's Road, and from Queen's Road to the church it was known as Church Lane. The old pear drop lamp post again in view on the right. Now we have a view of the old windmill in what was Church Lane, but St Margaret's Road in this day and age. We can see part of the church spire. We can also see a little granary there, a little store next to the windmill, which is still standing today. Now we have a painting by George Bentley Burwood, the famous Lowestoft artist, showing the windmill and St Margaret's Church. The windmill disappeared when they put the railway cutting through in St Margaret's Road, and there we have that little granary store, which is now opposite Northfield School. That's where they used to store the grain for the windmill. Going back to the top of the High Street, the big house on the left of the picture would be Park Mansions. The wasteland from Park Mansions to the lamp post on the right where the old boy in white is standing, that would all be Bellevue Park. And the shaded part we can see on the right is part of the Lowestoft Lighthouse wall. But this is the way out of Lowestoft today. And now we have the old tram shaking itself along the tram lines. We used to call them bone shakers. They came to Lowestoft in June 1903, and they finished in May 1931. On the right of the picture also, we can see one of the old water troughs where the old horses used to get a taste of the water, but that trough is now in the park next to the shelter where the kids set the thatched roof alight. We also have the old gentleman in the middle of the picture sweeping up the manure to put on his rhubarb. I prefer custard on mine, but there we have the old boy. They all used to go around getting the manure up for their gardens. All the old boys used to work some kind of allotment or garden. And now, on the tram, we've entered London Road North. This is Bishop's Ironmongery business, which is now Fred Cook's furniture store. I worked here out of school hours for sixpence a week, but I didn't finish only working for John Bishop. He had two sisters at the bottom of Old Nelson Street who I used to run errands for, and a brother named Horace Bishop who kept a fruit shop in Duke's Head Street. So for the sixpence I was working the three shops. Another name which rings out well in the town, Old Gunning Hill. This is next to the Welcome, which used to be the old Adelaide pub. This today would be Kirby, or Knight's the curtain shop, next to the Arcade Bookshop, which also used to be the Fox and Hounds public house. But these names to the old people are like Harrods are to the people in London. Now we come to the corner of Milton Road. This in my day was Robertson's, the ladies' shop. And there you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lamp posts, so gas was cheap. And this, in later years, became Cavendish Woodhouse, and I think it's just finished up, known as the Times. Chaplains, here we have a clue because we can see the Congregational Church just on the left of the picture. Chaplain, he was an ironmonger opposite Robertson's, and there you can see how helpful they were to the postman with the big numbers on the shop. All these little shops, I'm afraid, have disappeared in the town, all for big shops, supermarkets. Next door we had the volunteer stores. This pub is still there today, but on a much bigger basis than this one. Little old boy standing on the left-hand corner, wishing he could nip in and buy a pint. But what character these little pubs had. Here we have chaplains and the volunteers all joined up as one. But when one's look at that, the character of the pub have gone. Today when one walks past there, you see the old tables out, the old sunshades. Not the sort of pub I knew as a boy. Now we're looking down from the Journal office. The big church we see in the centre of the picture, that was the United Methodist Church. And you can also see a long low wall which was knocked down, and where you walk back to those shops set back off the pavement. Where we look at the church, that is now the site of Court's furniture shop, and where the lady's walking with the umbrella, that would be roughly near the old public hall where the old people used to go and watch the silent films, and which Fine Fair started off in when they first came to Lowestoft in that area. We can bring you up to date shortly. There we have it, same birds you've been looking at, taken from more or less the same place. To me, just a concrete jungle. Because when you go back and you look at the other slide, At least you can see character in the slide itself, the buildings, the trees, the church. Now we come to what we know as Peter Lord's shoe shop today on the right, which used to be Arms's furniture shop, and we're roughly standing outside Woolworths looking right up to Texas hardware and paint store. The little boy on the left of the picture looking over the wall is on the corner of Gordon Road. In my time that shop was known as the Irish Linen House. Today it's the Anglia Building Society. And there again we had the old tram lines. We will travel on the tram a little bit longer to show you some more slides as we go along the railway or tram track. This is taken a few years back from the same position as you now saw the other slide, showing you Lord's shoe shop, which again is on the right of the picture. And where we have all the little shops, which can hardly be seen on the left of the picture, they've all been taken over by Tesco supermarket. The white square on the building on the left of the picture would be Lowestoft Electrical. But today that is greatly pedestrianised as well. Another view showing you the old Lord's shoe shop when it used to be Arms's furniture shop on the right. And there again on the left of the picture where the trees are standing would be the Anglian Building Society on the corner of Gordon Road. So quite a bit of change here as we look up the main street. A lovely picture of Arms's furniture shop. This is where a lot of the people furnished the rooms when they got married in the early days. Also at the back of the shop we can see the old house with the tower, as we call it, which is really known as St Margaret's Villa and was built for one of the vicars of St Margaret's Church around 1863. In my time that used to be the old club doctor's place. We used to pay a penny a week into what they call the old panel doctors, and that's where we used to go and sit in and get all our ills and upsets all put right, as we say. But that was also the home of Colonel Seppings, the first unofficial mayor of Lowestoft, who stood in for Youngman until Youngman was officially made the mayor of the town. Here we can see Peter Lord's shop, which was the original Arms's furniture shop. We crossed the road, we have the Anglia Building Society on the corner of Gordon Road, which used to be the old Irish Linen House. This picture is roughly taken from near Woolworths, looking right up to the old Carousel pub, which used to be the Spread Eagle. Now we come to the shopping centre, or more or less near the shopping centre. We can see Purdy's the chemist on the left hand corner. That used to stand on the corner of Regent Road. Then you had Brenner's Penny Bazaar, the Water and Gas Company, Pike's the Tobacconist, and the old arcade. All this has changed. As you can see, it's a wartime scene, and thank God there's nobody walking about with a gas mask there today. We don't want to see those days no more. Now we've got the same view, only after the war. This is when it was all built up, and this today is Westgate's. Again on the corner of Regent Road. reaching right up to where Moorings and the Journal office is. But as you saw on the last slide, all those beautiful buildings, beautiful architecture have been replaced by this concrete jungle. Now we're looking down the main street, and in the centre you can see St John's Spire. You can also see old Purdy's, the chemist, there with the sunblind down. And just where the ladies are, two bay windows jutting out from the big building on the centre right, which is Lowestoft Electrical today. And there you can see the change in the main street. The low wall on the left, that's been pulled down. That's where you walk back to those shops set back off the pavement. Early 1900s, because we can see the old tram wires in the street. And this is the same view again, and there you can see Lowestoft Electrical with the bays painted white, just in the centre right again. And this is looking roughly from the Westgate shop right down to the station sort of thing. Now we come to old Billy Cooper, bit of a simpleton, used to ride round the town on the old horses and carts there. What he got, he used to have 4 donkeys, all named after biblical characters, but here we had 2 of them, Obadiah and Malachi. Billy used to cart coal round the town, sawdust for the pubs, fisherman's gear. The most popular story about Billy was he was a bit of a simpleton, old horse and cart tied up with string, used to go about in old sou'wester. He was riding up Pleasurewood Hill one day and little Malachi dropped down dead, and when the policeman come along, Billy say to him, "That's a rum bore," he say, "I can't make it out, that's never done that afore." And that's the story behind our Billy Cooper. Now we come to a badge off one of the Royal Naval Patrol vessels. As you can see, there's MMS, which the sailors called them Mickey Mouses. They were minesweepers. That was what they were known as. And here we can see Mickey Mouse sweeping a mine with a broom. Well, they say a broom is a sweeper anyway. Now we come to one of the models from the Maritime Museum up the Sparrow's Nest. There's several of these models about, but this is a beautiful one of an old fishing smack. All these smacks were fishing out of Lowestoft before the steam trawlers. Now we come to Ruby, one of the last net braiders in the town. They called them beachsters years ago. Now they say braiders. But it's unusual to see a block of wood held there. They generally used to use the fingers. Now we come to Haddenham's Bears. These 1920 prices, I think this was taken from a 1927 magazine, and those prices are for a dozen bottles. 5 shillings, well that'd be 25p. These baskets are being made, and they're the fishing baskets. You can see the quarter crane baskets, 4 quarter crane baskets to a crane. This art is still kept alive, as you can see by this lad here making one of the fishing baskets. Stanley Bird, he's a man, years ago used to be loads of them about the town. And now we come to the old bridge, a bridge I don't like a lot. I used to like the old swing bridge. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but every year I'm getting older. Now we're on Station Square, my old friend. I've got to have a look at him. He's what we'd call a folly, I should say. Nobody wanted him there. He's not a typical fisherman. Put in mind of a beachman, you know, boatman on the beach anymore for the Skylark. And now we end this film in Station Square. A lot of the people prefer the new Lowestoft, but my memories are of the old Lowestoft and always will be.